Oh man. Oh man. Hey, oh my goodness. Welcome, yo. I am so interested in talking about video games. And wow, how they're changing so fast, aren't they? I want to talk about them as far as where where we're looking at like Unreal Engine 5, right? This is going to tick some people's nerves, but I want to touch on this. So I play Grand Theft Auto. You guys already know that. You know that, right? You already know that. So I play Grand Theft Auto, right, online. And I'm like, yo, I play on PC. And this is really this is toxic to me, right? Didn't the PlayStation and Xbox get an update that allowed them to get ray tracing or something? I believe so. And you know, uh, I mean, so Grand Theft Auto online, it's an old game, right? And but it still looks great. Don't confuse. It still looks great, but it's definitely no longer relevant as far as graphics are with gaming these days, especially with stuff like Unreal Engine 5, and especially if you look at Red Dead Redemption 2. If you play Grand Theft Auto, you should probably have played Red Dead Redemption online as well, and it's some major things in there, right? Like one of the first things is they don't have ray tracing. I don't remember seeing ray tracing on PC, that is, but I do remember them having, I believe, DLSS and FSR, which is AMD's version of like super sampling or something. And we'll dig into that. Like, what is that stuff anyway, right? Like, what does that mean when they say those things? But it's like, it's for real. The game looks really good, right? And so then there's other games, like for instance Cyberpunk. Now recently, I decided to go ahead and cut Cyberpunk on and check it out, because I mean I just never really messed with it. I was like, I'm too busy. I'll get to it one day. So anyways, I took like 30 minutes of time to just see what the big craze was. And so I cut it on, got the ray tracing on. I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty interesting. And then I noticed that they allow FSR. It was in there. So I switched it on instantaneously. The frames per second increased, big time increase. And I was really shocked because, frames per second with such image quality was like, oh man, this is really nice, right? And so I'm saying to myself, like, okay, two things going on. Two things going on with gaming is one, 2K, 4K, and standard 1080, right? So with standard 1080p gaming, yeah, your image is pretty decent, but there's still a blur to it. It's not really that sharp. It's just really not sharp at all. Then you get into something like 1440 pixels, you know what I'm saying? And then, it gets a lot sharper. It gets a lot cleaner, or a lot crisper. Gaming looks really nice. Then you start moving upwards into the 2000s, and we're talking 4K, right? 2 and 3000. So now we're talking about 4K gaming. So once we get into the 2 and 3000s, it's like, oh wow, you really see an image difference, right? But then at this point, the struggle is real, because the higher your graphics are with that higher resolution screen, the slower the frames per second, and it's just not a good thing. So there's these technologies that exist that some of us may use, some of us probably never used it. It depends on the, uh, I guess you just say the graphics card, right? So there's DLSS and then there's FSR technology, right? So I just, talk a little about DLSS. So, that's a deep learning super sampling. It's in a family of real time deep learning. So we're talking about artificial intelligence. It's image enhancement and upscaling technologies developed by NVIDIA that are exclusive to its RTX line of graphics cards and available in a number of video games. The goal of these technologies is to allow the majority of the graphics pipeline to run a lower resolution for increased performance, and then infer a higher resolution image from this that contains the same level of detail as if the image had been rendered at this higher resolution. This allows for higher graphical settings and or frame rates for a given output resolution depending on the user's preference. So what they're doing is, if your graphics card is capable and the video games you're playing allow, DLSS is dropping the resolution. It's doing it internally, and then it's upscaling it, right? So a lot of times with PC players, some of the things we do to get more frames out of a game is, let's say you're playing 1080 by 1920 by 1080. You might drop it down to like 17 by 16, right? This innately, it's going to make it a little more choppier, and it's not going to look as good, but it gives you faster frames per second because you've shrunken the resolution. Now, ordinarily, we would buy better graphics cards to combat this. The better the graphics card, the better the CPU, the faster the memory, all these things play a part, the better your gaming experience would be and the higher resolution you could play in. So that becomes expensive. Not everybody can wheel and deal in that area because it gets really expensive really quick. Look at the 40 series NVIDIA RTX graphics cards. Ta-da. So technologies like this, I believe in the near future, are going to change gaming and make gaming top-notch for all levels of players, right? So AMD has their version. It's Fidelity FX Super Resolution. In theory, AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution is a technology that's designed to give gamers the best of both worlds. When activated, you'll no longer need to choose between high frame rates and higher resolution graphics. Fidelity FX Super Resolution, also known as FSR, is essentially designed to upscale your graphics while you play, allowing you to output graphics with a higher frame rate, but also at 4K as well. So while the game engine is rendering at 1080p, for example, the final output is 1440 or 4K. So when do you start noticing this stuff? Well, when you have a digital output monitor and digital output graphics card. This is a different cable, obviously, to your HDMI. And hopefully nobody's using anything older than the HDMI or the digital video input. So when you switch to that digital video line and your monitor allows for up to 1440 or 4K gaming, then your resolutions, you have all these options for gaming resolutions to your screen. So I don't know if anybody knew that. If you did, that's cool. But if you didn't know that, if you're using a 1920 by 1080 monitor and it has a digital input cable line in, you might want to try that digital cable line just to see if your screen goes past 1920 by 1080. It might just be a super fast 240 or 244 megahertz screen and nothing else you're going to get out of it. You can't get bigger than a 1920 by 1080 resolution. You know what I'm saying? But it's always worth looking into and checking it out. So AMD and NVIDIA use these technologies basically to give us higher frame rates while gaming, but still have better quality so that you can enjoy the actual look of the game. So they're pretty much, they're similar in so many ways. Now, some of the cool things, like I'm so mad about Grand Theft Auto and a lot of games right now, is that whole ray tracing thing. Like ray tracing, it actually is a big deal. It's like a big deal. It's a big difference in your gaming. There's things that, like the reflection, right? The reflection stuff that goes on, like it's still a big deal. Ray tracing, and now they've stepped up to path tracing, but ray tracing, right? It's a method of graphics rendering that simulates the physical behavior of light. NVIDIA has made real-time ray tracing possible with their RTX series cards, the first ever real-time ray tracing GPU, and has continued to pioneer ever since. And so they keep producing these technologies. There's ray tracing now, there's path tracing. right? And path tracing is a computer graphics Monte Carlo method of rendering images of three-dimensional scenes, such as the global illumination is faithful to reality. So fundamentally, the algorithm is integrating over all the illuminance, arriving to a single point on the surface of an object. So all that mumbo jumbo talk simplified, all the lighting and the lighting effects, which we would commonly mess around with on a PC. Well, they've created this technology to help bring all this stuff to our view and put it in our view for games, right? So when you switch these things on, then you have another problem. I'm gonna tell you right now, Cyberpunk 2077, ray tracing and path tracing will eat your graphics card alive. I wouldn't suggest doing it. You're gonna need some top notch. You're gonna need a lot of money at the point in time where we are now to take advantage of these technologies. But with ray tracing, that's been getting better the more and more they work on it. So they use the DLSS technology or the AMD FSR technology, depending on the graphics card you use. If you use an AMD graphics card, which is Radeon series and stuff like that, then you'll be needing to use FSR if the game supports it. And if you're using NVIDIA based card, NVIDIA technology cards, then you'll be using DLSS, right? So, now, so to enjoy these games that are just changing every year and getting better and better and better, because I mean it's a lot of games, right? Like Taurus Land, like the what is this? The Unreal 5 version of World of Warcraft. I do want to check that out. Honestly, I'm a World of Warcraft fan is what I am truly, but it doesn't look great and it's repetitive. Like they haven't really changed the gameplay, and that's a whole nother conversation. But we're talking about the look of games and where they're going, right? So these technologies are constantly being worked on and improved, and I'm looking at it like, wow, the gaming is just going to get better and better every year. But if that happens, then is that going to make the products we need to run these games more expensive every freaking year, right? So when you start spending $4, $5, $6, $7, $800 or $1,000 to get parts for your computer, you've crossed into a whole new world of, wow, nothing better happened to this thing because I got a lot of money in it, right? And so when you start getting these newer games, it seems like you're going to have to increase your hardware to run this stuff, unless they continue to perfect DLSS and AMD's FSR, right? And I believe FSR has been set up to be ran on all graphics cards. So kudos to them with that, and I believe DLSS is just made for their RTX cards, so it's kind of pointless. You got to be all the way in or out, right? So, yeah, man. Anyways, more info on FSR, right? So, a few months ago, AMD had announced ongoing work on the third generation of Fidelity FX Super Resolution. Again, FSR. It's upscaling. This should bring a similar feature to the DLSS 3 interpolating of intermediate frames inserted between legitimate game frames, much like TVs do with video and movies. AMD has now formally confirmed this and presented FSR 3.0, which will offer frame interpolation and will again be open technology, right? So kudos to AMD for continuing to work on this technology and share it with the world. I mean, it just helps us all around with gaming. Is it as good as DLSS technology? Who really knows? Is it? Doesn't matter. But does it do the same thing? Yes. I run an AMD card, and to see what happens when I switch on FSR and to see that jump or that boost in frames per second, that's everything. If you play race car games or sim games or arcade sim games, right? You want that high refresh speed. You want 60 minimum. You want really 80 to 100 frames per second, because when you're racing oh man, all the stuff you're seeing the frames per second are moving like that, it's a whole new world, right? Especially if you're in something like 2K or 4K monitor viewing, different resolutions. Like, oh my God, it really gets sick, right? So, kudos to AMD for continuing to produce this technology where NVIDIA keeps to itself. You know what I'm saying? So, just thinking on this and trying to imagine where gaming is going in the future, it's going to some really good places. The technology is doing good. Artificial intelligence, NVIDIA is working heavily on AI tech software and stuff. So, we could see more for gaming that will make things easier for us, because nobody wants to spend all that money to get the hardware to run these games. But if the software for the hardware and the games begin to make the games play better, or make it easier to play the games and get a better frame rates, and we don't necessarily have to go out and upgrade hardware again, that's awesome. It's awesome. So, thank you, AMD. And if you're a NVIDIA gamer already using their hardware, well, you already know what time it is. NVIDIA keeps producing for their cards. So, next year you'll be buying a 5000 series with the next version of ray tracing technology on it, right? Or the newest DLSS technology on the next card, right? Instead of it just being open. But whatever, you know what I'm saying? I love NVIDIA. I was running their cards for a long time. But the point is, man, games are changing, right? Games are changing. Tech is changing, right? This AI stuff is blowing up. It's getting big. And just looking at going into this new version of gaming with Unreal Engine 5 and all this other stuff, ray tracing, path tracing, and trace tracing, whatever's coming next, it's just going to be amazing. Just something that I'm thinking about and I'm excited about, and I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear everybody's thoughts. I want to know how you all feel about gaming going forward in the future. What do you think about console gaming going in the future with this new technology, and PC gaming, and Unreal 5, and what's your favorite graphics company, right? Is it Nvidia, or is it AMD, or is it what now they have Microsoft makes cards, or is it, who's making these cards? Yeah, the new A7s or whatever, right? So Intel, right? Intel makes cards. So now we've got 3 different types of graphics cards on the market, right? So what's your favorite? Who do you like? What's your brand? All these interesting things, and basically, how do you feel about gaming going forward in the future? Because I'm excited about it, especially keeping up with this the software improvements. It's going to be amazing. So anyways, yeah, I'm going to catch y'all in the next episode.